wish you'd understand. I just wish that God had a better plan. I'm so confused. I need a redo. Inside of me that's begging and begging and pleading. I just wanna feel free. I just wanna feel lovely. I'm surrounded by love that's in pain. Can I wipe your tears away? Please don't hurt for me. I hate that it's for me. It's for me.
Hi, welcome to the Michigan Man 64 podcast. Thank you to Amber K for that amazing introduction into the show. Amber K is warrior number 2. She is a singer-songwriter that wrote I Hate That It's For Me. Please check out her episode. Me and Amber have teamed up just to try to help people understand what it's like living with a chronic disease and how you have to keep on fighting the fight every day. My name is Brian. I am the Michigan Man 64. Before I got diagnosed 28 years ago, I was playing football at the University of Michigan, and I went from living that lifestyle to 4 years after that being diagnosed with MS, and I talk about my journey as well as the journey of other chronic disease warriors around the world just to try to help people understand what it's like, how it affects your mental health, how it affects your family, how it affects your career. Today, I am sitting down with a return guest I recorded with back before I started with Hale Media. Jonathan is the director of inpatient operations for the state of Massachusetts. I recorded with him in episode 29 and 99. He was diagnosed with his MS in 2022. And I invited him back on just to talk about the mental health part. I think that's the most important part of dealing with any kind of a chronic disease. So please welcome back to the podcast, Jonathan. How you doing today, Jonathan?
Hey, bud. How you doing? I'm doing well. Thank you for having me again. I appreciate it. I really do.
I appreciate you, Jonathan. You know, I know when we met about a year ago, and we met on TikTok, and I saw your videos of you doing your scuba dives, and that's kind of what connected us, and we're going to talk a whole lot about that, I'm sure, throughout the podcast. But, you know, since I met you and then I found out what you did for a living and just what you have to say about the whole mental health part of dealing with chronic disease, I just appreciate being able to say that you're a friend of mine, Jonathan.
Well, thanks. I appreciate being able to say you're a friend as well. You know, meeting you and meeting everybody has just been eye-opening, enlightening, and amazing journey over the past year. It is amazing where we've come.
So, Jonathan, let me ask you this. I know that there's a thing when you're talking the mental health part of dealing with chronic disease. There's 5 stages of grief. We talk a lot about it when we're in lives together with other people. And we kind of got together a couple of weeks ago, thought about maybe doing a podcast episode. So here we are, we're sitting down, we're going to talk about it. So as a mental health professional and somebody that has helped people in the past, and now you're the person that was diagnosed in 2022. So you actually had to go through these stages of grief yourself. Talk about the 5 stages of grief and how we deal with them as somebody that gets diagnosed with a chronic disease.
Yeah. And just clarification, still going through the stages of grief, you know, that it's not a one and done,
Right.
Unfortunately.
Right.
And when we think of stages of grief, right, usually the way you think of stages of grief is when someone passes, when a loved one passes, somebody you know passes. And those initial stages of grief, because can be very outward and expected. But when it's a chronic illness, it's not thought of in the same way or dealt with in the same way as me and you have talked with people, right? We all seem the one common thing I always hear is, I miss the person I was.
Mm-hmm.
I am longing for the person that I was. Well, that's the stages of grief, right? That's starting it off right there. Textbooks wise, there are 5 stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Those textbooks are the 5 stages of grief. But again, like we were saying, they're linear, right? They don't, you go in, you go out, you go up, you go down. Sometimes over the course of a week, sometimes over the course of a day, sometimes over the course of an hour.
Yeah.
You'll go through all of these, especially in the beginning. I found in the beginning, I would move in and out of these stages. Now, it's realizing it after, not while sometimes it's hard to see the forest through the trees.
Yeah.
When you're in it, right? And until you can train yourself or get help getting that training to train, what your body's doing, what your emotions are doing, it's hard to focus on the other parts of MS. That's the thing with MS. It's so encompassing. It's physical, it's mental, it's emotional, it's all in one.
Right.
And sometimes the mental symptoms are from MS, like cognitive abilities, things like that, brain fog, all those things, eyesight, sensory, that kind of stuff. And then more into the physical, then into the numbness, the tingling, that's also eyesight, all of those physical symptoms that then lead back to these stages of grief. I long for the person that I was. Who am I now? Where am I going to be? How am I going to survive? How am I going to feed myself? How am I going to clothe myself? You start going with what they call Maslow's hierarchy, right?
Mm-hmm.
The highest hierarchy being your breathing, right? Breathing is the highest hierarchy. You don't have that, then it goes down from there. And you start putting those things into perspective, and you start learning start worrying. And then once the worry might go over, right? All right, I figured this piece out. It still goes back to, what am I going to do with myself? Where am I?
Yeah.
Why did this happen to me?
All right.
What if I do this? Will it change things? What if I ignore it? I'm just going to ignore it and I'm not going to look at it, which, as we know, is probably one of the worst things you can do. Not only mentally, but physically. If you ignore it, bad things can happen. And there's a good chance they can happen. And if you're not mentally prepared for it, then your likelihood of having those bad outcomes can become even more. The mind has such a powerful thing.
I can tell you, Jonathan, that back early in my diagnosis, I went through this denial stage. I was 27 years old. I just got done playing at the University of Michigan 5 years earlier. And I get told that I have MS, and I'm like, man, I'm a big guy. I'm a badass. I just got done running a triathlon, and I didn't want to believe that anything was wrong with me. I mean, even though I got that diagnosis, I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to accept the fact that I had been given that diagnosis, and I kind of denied it. But I kind of did it I want to say I did it in a positive way. I'm just like, okay, it is what it is. I got this disease, but I don't want to be labeled. I didn't want a handicap placard. Even though I could have had one, right off the rip, I was in denial. I didn't want any part of that label of being diagnosed with MS.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And because, this is probably, most people are diagnosed in their early 20s to 40s, right? I've even some people later on in life, but normally it can be in your 20s, mostly 20s to 30s, and then, starting later a bit in the 40s. So this might be your first health concern. You might never have had anything wrong with you yesterday, and now all of a sudden you have this drop in your lap. And then that's where we go back to the supports. What kind of supports do you need? What kind of what do you need for your mental health to be able to fight this disease, right? You have to be mentally strong to fight this disease, because it will show you every single day that it's there.
Right.
It's never going to take a break. We all know that, right? Anybody who has MS knows that this is never going to take a break. And that starts to sink in. And I think we also need to think about, like, if we break it down, we just broke down denial. I did the same thing. Well, I ain't got time for this. Nope. This is going to have to come back at another time.
Right.
We got too many things going on in life to do this.
Yeah.
So then you just deny. And then depending on what's going on, right? If you're going through a hard flare and and it's not getting resolved and things are happening and it's taking, it takes time, right? It takes time for medications to work, it takes time for your nerves to calm down. Especially with me, I went through a major flare, and still have the residual symptoms from it, but they didn't subside like next week.
Right.
It takes months for that stuff to happen.
Sure.
To even think about that, you've gotten a little bit better. And sometimes it's so long that you got to kind of think back and think, oh yeah, I have gotten better. I wasn't able to do this before.
Yeah.
But that can make that denial go away real quick and go into anger. Right now you're just mad at the world. You're mad at the world. You're mad at, why did this happen to me? What did I do? I've done everything I'm supposed to do.
Yep.
So you're angry at it, right? You're angry at everything. You're angry at your doctors. You're angry at everybody that you might be able to blame this for happening.
Right.
Even yourself, right? And then that's where now depression and bargaining kicks in. Bargaining supposedly is next. I would think more that it's the depression. It kind of encompasses all of it.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
That depression starts right from the beginning because you're definitely not happy. That's for sure.
No.
And now you're depressed and you're going through the other stages. That's why I say it's linear and going back and forth, because you may be like, all right, I'm gonna do everything I can. I'm bargaining. I'm gonna make this happen. I'm gonna eat right. I'm gonna do this. You get a whole plan.
Yep.
But then next hour, you're completely pissed off about it.
Right.
And that now you're in both of those stages. You can be one doesn't have to be going with the other. And I think it's recognizing them is really important. Recognizing that it's okay to be angry. It really is. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be depressed about it.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's making you be happy.
Yeah.
No, you know what I mean? You have your right to your own feelings. And I think of acknowledging that as well. Even going down to the last one that we'll talk about in a bit, acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
You can still be angry and accept it. Nobody can take these feelings away from you. It's you to manage them and you to give yourself the best chances of living a very productive life.
I agree with that.
Because I think I do live a productive life at this point.
Yeah.
And I haven't even been diagnosed that long.
Yeah. And Jonathan, I have been through these 5 stages multiple times in 28 years. Initially when I first went through my diagnosis back when I was 27, I went through the denial, the anger, the bargaining, the depression, and finally the acceptance. And you think you have a handle on it, and you might be rolling along good for months or even years. Like for me, I did 15 years on Capaxon, and I was still working for the state of Ohio, and I was still golfing, and I was still raising my 2 kids and coaching and my life was going good. But then when you have that roadblock that comes up, MS takes a curve and throws something else at you, and then it changes, and then I lose my ability to work in 2015 with the state of Ohio. I go through all these stages all over again, and I found myself going through like bad depression, and that's when I first started to figure out that I need to address it. And that was one of my biggest mistakes back, when I was early in my diagnosis, is that I denied the mental part of it, the mental health part of it, the addressing the depression. I was in denial that I was depressed, because I'm like, I'm a big guy. I'm a strong guy. I'm a former football player. I can deal with this. I'm young. I denied the depression part of it. Huge mistake on my part. I think that the mental health part should be addressed immediately on diagnosis, and I tell people that all the time. Take care of your mental health. But I've been through these stages multiple times on different occasions in my 28 years.
Oh, definitely. And knowing that if you think of mental illness as a symptom of your diagnosis, right? You wouldn't be depressed. You may be. I would have been depressed. I think I've had depression most of my life. Before I was diagnosed and after I was diagnosed, and just kind of fumbled through it, but really shouldn't have. Why should have? Because even me in the mental health field kind of come with a stigma saying, no, I don't need that. I'm a professional. I know what I'm talking about. But you don't know. When it's hard to see the forest through the trees for anybody. That's why doctors don't treat themselves, right? It's not legal for even a doctor to write his own antibiotic for a med, because you are not going to give the same, you're not going to look at it the same way that you would look at it professionally as you do personally. So we have to look at ourselves as the patient. We have to look at ourselves, how are we going to help ourselves through this? What are the tools that I have? And what is the forgiveness I can give myself when I have a stumble today? Or I have my depression, it's just not the day to deal with me. Today's not the day. You have to be able to tell yourself that today's not the day, because not anybody that I have in my professional life, the one thing that I can say to anybody when bad things happen, how many people say, I just shouldn't have came to work today. I knew today was going to be a bad day.
Yeah.
Well, then if you know it, then take care of yourself with it and give yourself that grace to do it. And that takes practice.
Yeah.
That takes a lot of practice.
So being that you are in the mental health field and you've been doing this for 20 years and you've been on both sides of the fence, how did you take it upon yourself to take yourself through these stages? How did you manage them? Just to give people out there that are listening, Jonathan, that, there aren't mental health professionals and they don't have these tools, that they were trained on and they have the experience in. How did somebody that's actually been on both sides of the fence go through these stages, and how did you handle them?
So I was able to recognize it pretty quickly, that, of the things that I've learned, things of what people say depression feels like, and because I knew I wasn't suicidal. I knew that wasn't there. I wasn't suicidal. I maybe have said I wanted to, but it was really just talking crap because I was angry, right? And just trying to say anything to let out that anger. But I knew that I was depressed because of the gray. When people say that the world turns very gray, meaning, yeah, you're going through the motions and this and that. And I saw myself doing that. I saw myself not enjoying the things that I normally enjoy in life. Even with the things that I could still do, like scuba diving. Yes, I enjoyed scuba diving, but I wasn't man, I can't wait to go. And here we are with all that. It just seemed like, yeah, we're going to go do that. So that's how I started off looking at it. And that's when I was like, I went and talked to my PCP. You started getting tools that I could help me start talking to people. And that's kind of when I met you, was around that time. I had started getting on a new DMT, started to feel a little bit better. I don't know if it's the DMT, and I don't know if it was just time for my body to maybe calm down from my initial flare, but I started to feel better. So then I took some time. I decided that I was taking some time off. I said, and this was both from my physical and mental health. I got away from work. Now, I never took any time off, even during my flare. I worked from my hospital room. I had my wife bring my computer, and that was bargaining. That part was bargaining.
Yeah.
I was bargaining with myself that if I just kept going and just put my head down, and I'll still do what the doctors tell me to do. I'll take the steroids. I'll come for this. I'll do that. But I'm going to continue with what I do because this is the way I do it, and I'm good at it.
Yeah.
And I think that is what started my depression. Is that I never took time to go through these stages and try to get to some sort of acceptance, which again, we'll get to, but I don't think accepting is really a great word. I think you're not accepting.
Right.
You're dealing, and you're accepting that yes, if you're going to accept that you're going to have a good life, you're accepting that you're going to do, but you're not accepting you have MS. I'll never accept I have MS. I don't care. Not in that way, right?
Yeah.
I know I have the diagnosis of MS. I know it's not going away, but I'm not accepting that this is the best it's going to get. And I'm not accepting that.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to, I started, I never allowed myself to have it. So, I work for the state. I get a good amount of time off. We accrue sick time. I was never a person, thank God, knock on wood, who was very sickly before my diagnosis. So I had a good amount of sick time just saved up.
Right.
And I just took 8 weeks and I did intense physical therapy. I started exercising. I started eating right. I started doing all the things that would help me be able to manage my physical symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
And needed to figure out, though, how am I going to work on my mental health? Like, what is it that I need to do that life is not gray? Like, what do I need to do? And it was talking to people. It was getting to know people. It was, spending time with my wife, spending time with my kids.
Yeah.
Not focused on my job, which I love my job and I'm good at my job, and my job is very understanding of my condition, and they were the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like I left, but I needed that time just for me.
Yeah.
So that's when I actually started making these videos that I make for TikTok now. I found a love in video editing, and scuba diving, which I'd already started doing, gave me more of a purpose to want to go scuba dive so I could take more pictures and really get into a hobby.
Yeah.
And then also, during that time I went away, I went to physical therapy every day, I improved, and then I just needed to keep that going. So I am constantly trying to find ways to motivate my mind. What is a new hobby that I can get? What is a new thing that I can do? I like pushing limits of my physical abilities, which was kind of funny because I never was an exerciser, like ever. Like I never walked. I never drank a lot of water. I was not that guy.
Yeah.
But I needed to learn how to do those things and enjoy those things, and feeling accomplishments, small wins, right? Today I'm going to walk 300 yards. And tomorrow I'm going to walk a mile. Then I'm going to do the MS walk. That's what I was doing. I'm going to do the MS walk. That's 3 miles. Well, I had a bunch of friends around that are very, very kind, and they're very supportive, and they're very this. And I almost feel like I burst their bubble a bit by the time we got to that walk, they were like, "Are you going to be able to do it?" I was like, I think I could do that and more because I had gotten so much better at doing what I'm doing, right? Yeah. I just kept going for it, going for it, that goal, I was going to crush it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to keep going after that. And I keep doing that. I walk, it's 3 feet of snow outside, right? And maybe that first day, I'm not going to go out and walk in this, but I'm going to find a way to walk. I'm lucky enough to work at a hospital that has a huge campus.
Yeah.
So it's, I can walk right out there. I get my butt out there and I walk. I walk, I do the things for my mental health. So I guess that's a long-winded way of saying it, but just finding your own tools and search for them.
Yep.
Because might not be able to do what you're doing now, or that you could do before. But there are other things that are out there, and there's other ways of doing maybe those same things.
I look at myself, Jonathan, that, I graduated from Michigan with a communications degree, broadcast journalism, and I never worked in the field for, 30 years. And now I'm sitting here doing podcasts, and the only reason I'm doing this is because I lost my ability to work a couple of years ago, and I'm like, I gotta figure it out. I gotta occupy my mind. Because I know that, that's been my biggest battle, is it's the mental part, and I always try to tell people, the physical part sucks. I'm not going to deny it. I can't say anything good about the physical, losing the ability to use your hands, your eyes, your voice. I know people that can't talk anymore. All that sucks. The mental part is the most important part. If you're going to do anything, you got to take care of the mental part of dealing with this disease.
Yep. You have to deal with the mental part. Because it's all, I think now we're in a time in society where you're starting to see it, that how much the holistic part is important, meaning the whole body, both mind, body, and soul, like all of that works together.
Yep.
And I never, even as a nurse, didn't really think about, like, of course they teach us that and all of this, but until you need to do it, until you need to get those skills,
yep,
that's why I also think about where people say nobody understands but us. If you don't have it, then you don't understand. And that's totally true, right? There's a difference between empathy and sympathy here.
Right. Oh yeah.
But neither of them are wrong, right? People can be sympathetic. Healthcare people can be knowledgeable, can be sympathetic, but unless they have it, which we have a few healthcare professionals, right, that have MS,
Mm-hmm.
they can show the empathy and they can know it, but it's not wrong that the other side of it can't.
I agree with you, Jonathan. I wish that there was more of an understanding from everybody. I don't, it's kind of frustrating that you have to actually get the disease to understand what it's like. People, if you hear somebody say that I'm fatigued, they don't look at you and say, no, you're just lazy. No, I'm not. There's just people that just don't get that, and it's frustrating for us with chronic disease that whether it's family or employers or friends, it's just frustrating when you get those kind of reactions from people that they just don't understand it. I think that's a part of the mental health problem that people have, is just the frustration part of it.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I agree. And that's why I try, even with my wife, right? When I'm scrolling or this or that, and I'll just see little videos on something. Like the other day was about eyes. And, I struggle with my eyes when I get tired. When I get tired, they get like glossy and this and that. And there was a whole video by Dr. Bosner in Columbus, Ohio. I really like his videos.
Mm-hmm.
About the eye muscles and people with MS and their eye muscles, and they get tired. So maybe it's not optic neuritis. Like you know what I mean? Because during the day, my eyes are fine. And then it's always in the evening that it gets to be.
Yeah.
But I send those little videos to my wife, and just so that she kind of has an understanding.
Yeah.
And she always reads them and she always listens to them, and she comes back, and because I don't want to. You get to be like, how many times can people say, "Oh, my eyes," "Oh, I'm fatigued," "Oh, I'm this," right? Until finally people are like, they don't know how to help you. And they're not feeling that they're probably not even feeling you're complaining, but it's what you're starting to feel like, right? Because you're sick of saying it. You're sick of hearing it. You're sick of saying it.
Right.
And it's morally the mental part on yourself. It's not really even them. It's more, you put this on yourself. Well, give yourself a break. Yeah, your eyes suck today. Be okay with it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
You have to mentally prepare yourself, and I think that I struggle with that a lot. I struggle with not what other people think, because they probably don't think it, is what I think other people think.
Yeah, I get that.
And I even consciously think other people think, and I'm like, this is dumb.
Yeah.
I'm just being like, I know I'm being dumb, but I'm the frustrated one. It's really got nothing to do with anybody but myself. And being frustrated with myself. It's like fighting with yourself all the time. It's like having an argument with yourself constantly.
Oh yeah.
It's exhausting.
I'm my worst critic, man. I mean, I beat myself up all the time. I just trying to get things, done. I'm an independent person, and it's just the mind part of dealing with this chronic disease is just the hardest part, Jonathan. But I want to get into the tools that you have, because I know that you talked about the diving part of it, and I talked a little bit about how I got into the podcasting. That's one of my tools. I want to talk about the tools, and then I want to talk about the community that we kind of met in, and how important that plays in how we manage our disease.
Yeah. So finding tools are important, right? Any cognitive behavioral therapy, any behavioral therapy, any kind of counseling, anybody that's going to talk about your coping skills, which are essentially your tools, right? It's the things that you use to live your life to the fullest. And sometimes those coping skills need to be used when you're having a hard day. Sometimes those coping skills are just used because those are what you do. And the day is fine. To me, I use a multitude of coping skills. And I try and find different. I'm also a person who can't just sit around. Like even when I'm, not feeling well and I need to be sitting down, I can't just sit there and watch TV. I almost feel like I'm like wasting life away by doing that. So I find ways to occupy my time. So some of the things that I use is scuba diving definitely is one of my biggest things. But I live up here in Massachusetts and I can't do that all the time. So I try and in the winter especially, I go down scuba diving as much as I can to different places. While I'm down there, as you know, I like videos, I like photographs, I like videos. So I got into underwater photography.
Yeah.
So that was now a new hobby, something to get into, something to learn how to take pictures, all of that, right? And then how to take pictures underwater. So it was a way to keep my mind busy. That then turns into making these videos. While I'm home, I have to edit all the videos. I have to do all that, right? I don't put out a lot of videos because they take me time to do it, but that's what I'm looking to do is the fun of actually doing them.
Yeah.
So, it's ways to keep my mind going, right? Me and my wife, that's things that we can do together. We go scuba diving together. I bring her in sometimes and say, hey, what do you think of this song that I'm going to put with this video? And we have some fun with it.
Yeah.
I was a motorcycle rider, loved motorcycles. They were, probably 20 years of my life was all about riding motorcycles. And now all of a sudden I can't do it and still can't do it because I got some balance issues.
Yeah.
So I bought that little 3-wheeler.
Yeah.
So me and my wife now go out and do that. And it allows us to be with our friends. Now I'm lucky enough that I have friends that understand that I'm not going to be out all night or I'm going to be going here or I'm not going to be going there. And they're okay with that. And we spend time with them when we can, when I feel well enough to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's getting that relationship with the people, if you have a significant other, if you have a wife, husband, whatever you have, is getting that understanding that you're not going to be able to do everything all the time. You're not going to be that up and going, today may look different than tomorrow. Tomorrow might be a great day to do this, but today might not be. And having that understanding and being okay with yourself, using those coping skills, using what you use to get by, because a stimulated mind or an unstimulated mind can be one of the worst things ever, right? You can see in our older population, right, when people's minds aren't stimulated and what happens, they just slowly waste away. Well, you know what? That can happen when you're young too. Yep. If you don't do it. The more you sit around and the more you just dwell in one of these, in the anger phase or in the denial phase, or, it can be in the self-loathing phase, you know what I mean?
Right.
None of that's going to help you. And you need to be willing and open to use the tools at your disposal.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. And if you like to do something that you can no longer do, find something that you can do, which brings me back to my original point of I am into finding ways of doing things that I adapt to be able to still do them. Like that, to me, that's fun. How can I make this happen? How can I want to do this, be realistic, but don't give up on things.
I think that is a huge, important part of the puzzle, dealing with your chronic disease, is adapting. And because I've had to adapt, I went from still being able to golf with MS to not being able to golf, but I still enjoy golf. So what do? I found a golf game on my phone that, it's as realistic as I can get to real golf. And, it still lets me enjoy the sport of golfing, even though I physically can't do it. I used to like motorcycles, and I couldn't ride anymore. I fell away from that a long time ago. But about 5 years ago, I got a jet ski. It's on water. If I fall off there, I'm not going to get hurt. You adjust, you adapt, you make, I still like going fishing out on Lake Erie, and I figure out a way to still get on a boat. It's not easy, but I figure it out, and we've met a lot of people in the TikTok community where we met, Jonathan, and we've seen how they adapt. And we that guy out in Colorado, Jeff, he's a badass artist. And the guy only has the use of one of his hands, and he still figures out ways to produce incredible pieces of art. It's just even whatever MS is going to take from you or whatever chronic disease you're dealing with, there's ways to get around to still do the things that you like and have a passion for. You just got to figure it out. It might be a little bit different, but you can still do it.
Yep. And I think your jet ski story is a perfect example, right? My three-wheeler, your jet ski, they're perfect examples of being able to do things that we want to do, but in a different way. Change a variable, change a way of doing it. We see people, we meet people constantly. I'm just floored by what people are out there and what they're doing and how they're doing it, and the ingenuity that people come up to do things. Right? It's just an amazing feeling to watch, and then what it does is it stimulates your own minds to think about, well, if they're doing that, how can I do? How can I do what I want to do and make that happen? And you can see when that does happen, you can watch people in their whole demeanor and mood just change because of one variable. Well, find the variable, find what that variable is. If it's not physical, if it's mental, if it's this, if it's whatever it may be, who knows? There are so many things out there that you can find your niche and what it is. If it's community you need, we were just talking about this before in I love the way that social media now has bringing people together, the way that we always said, it may be like this one day in the future. We're really there. We're in the one day in the future at this point.
Oh, yeah.
That communities are coming together. And, if you're unable to get out of your house and you like to play cards, that's an easy one. You can find a way to play cards.
Yeah.
If you like to talk about model cars, there's places that you can talk about model cars that maybe just a decade ago, you had to go somewhere and be able to go, you couldn't even go to church. If God is your thing, you can now be part of a church and a part of a group. I guarantee there's probably one that you can find somewhere, right?
Yep.
That works for you.
Right.
So use the tools, find the tool.
Yep. So the next thing I want to talk about, Jonathan, is I'm really, really excited about this. And this just came about the last couple of weeks, and I want to talk about the MS Rising Summit that we're going to take. We're going to both be on the stage for in May, and with another MSer that we're friends with, Adam, MS with the wrong MFer. But let's talk a little bit about that, because I just think that's badass. That I'm actually going to get to meet you finally. And we're going to sit up on a stage and we're going to talk a little bit about MS and try to spread awareness. There's going to be doctors at this thing. It's going to be cool as heck.
It really is. And thank you. You're the one who brought me in, right? You're the one who suggested, and I really appreciate that. I'm very excited for that one. We're all going to talk about, our experiences with MS and also our coping skills and our tools that we use, and hopefully maybe shed some light and to inspire others to find their tools. Because let's face it. You have who the podcast, going from a football player. What a great story you have, to Adam's story, which every day you see something new of what he's doing.
Right.
And he is not lying down. Like his mindset is the mindset that will be successful, right? Those are always mindsets that will be determined and willing to think outside of the box. And that's what we have to do. MS has taken a lot from us, but there's always an outside of that box that we can find, and he finds it and shows it. I can't wait for people to hear his story. It's going to be an amazing weekend.
Yep.
I'm excited. I'm going to be talking about different chemical processes in the brain and why movement and why those things contribute to a better prognosis and a better life and a better that. Mm-hmm. I'm looking forward to that.
Yep.
And I just think it's going to be a lot of fun.
It's going to be awesome. This event that Jonathan and I are talking about, it's an MS summit It's going to take place on May 30th. It's called MS Rising. The organizer is a lady by the name of Phoebe. I recorded with her a few episodes back, and she talks about it in that episode. Please check it out. I'll be talking about the summit many more times leading up to it. I'm just really excited about meeting you, Jonathan, and meeting Dr. Summer. She's going to be on the panel now too, and meeting Phoebe and Adam. And I just think it's going to be an awesome, awesome event. And I'm going to be talking it up because we got to talk about this disease. We got to talk about it with people just to help people understand what it's like living with this disease. I spent 28 years, and I can tell you that there's not a lot of people that get it. Unless you got it, you don't get it. So I think that this is a good thing, just to help spread awareness about what it's like for everybody involved on both sides of the fence.
Agreed. I mean, it is true. If you don't know what it's like unless you have it, but you and all of us are doing our best to inform people and to give them a glimpse into what it would look like. Because the one thing I think that we wouldn't wish this on anybody. But with awareness comes funding. With funding comes research. With research comes a cure, hopefully one.
Absolutely. Jonathan, is there anything that you want to say before I wrap it up to anybody that's out there listening, that's dealing with a new chronic diagnosis, the mental health part of it, just the acceptance part of it, on how to deal with it? And I really appreciate you coming on, and you're just an awesome dude. But is there anything that you want to tell anybody before I wrap it up?
Well, I just think, I think you said it best. Don't ignore it. If you're newly diagnosed, I know there's a whole lot of things coming flying your way. The mental health part of it is probably one of the most important, because for other things to subside and get better and start working, the mental health part's got to be there. Otherwise, you're walking even more uphill than you maybe need to. Find those coping skills, find your light, find your community. If you don't have a community, come see us on TikTok. We'll be your community. Trust me.
Absolutely.
There are people here for you. And I want to thank you, Brian, for having me on. This is, it's always amazing to come on this podcast. And I really appreciate it. And I look forward to us being together in May.
Absolutely, Jonathan. Thank you so much, buddy. I'll put all of Jonathan's TikTok information if you want to follow him on TikTok. Like I said, Jonathan is just an amazing, amazing guy to talk to, the mental health part of it, dealing with a chronic disease. And I love everything that he has to say. He will definitely be on in future episodes. I can see me and Jonathan doing a lot of stuff together. But
Definitely.
that is, I'm going to wrap it up. If you want to follow me on TikTok, you can find me, MS Michigan Man 64. You can also find me on Instagram, MS Michigan Man 64, and I'm on Facebook, Brian Wallace out of Brunswick, Ohio. Hit the subscribe button, share it out. We want to be understood. The best way to be understood is to listen to us talk. Until the next episode, this is the MS Michigan Man 64. I am out.